So to talk more about this cheating scandal, we're going to bring in Grandmaster Maurice Ashley. So Maurice, what do you think about it? So I'm talking about it. And then he goes, Maurice, tell me about vibrating anal beads. I have never been asked this question in my life. Like, it's just never happened. And it's not, I would hope it never happens again. But he goes, so tell me. So when he says that, I go, I don't want to. Don't make me. And the guy with a smirk on his face goes, yeah, I guess it says a lot about us that we go straight for the anus.
Episode 7, we made it. Second rest day here at the US Chess Championship. We are here with a very special guest. Maurice Ashley is in the house. How's it going, Maurice?
I'm doing well,
Good to see you. Good to see you. It's
Happy
been
to
a
be
while.
here.
Tell us, what are you doing here in St. Louis?
It's St. Louis. It's the US Chess Championship. There are people here that I like. Not you, but others. No, I mean, come on. It's home. It's a second home. St. Louis is a city that I've been to more than any other city than New York.
Do you miss it?
I can't say I miss it. I've been having a lot of fun as I've taken this year off from commentary, and I just been having a good time. But I do miss maybe not the city as much as the people.
What's your initial take on the US Championship? Right now, I think we're just played round 10.
Round 10, yeah.
Yeah, well, my main man is leading right now, so I'm rooting for him. That's good.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's chaos with the women. It's great to see the young bucks making noise, although Jennifer is trying to hold it down, Jennifer Yu. And the legend, Irina Krush from Brooklyn, BK, is right there and could win her 9th championship. So make some history. So it's fun. It's a good time to be here.
Absolutely. And you were talking about BK. That's where you grew up, right? Tell us a bit about that. Let's start with your beginnings in the world of chess.
In the world of chess, definitely. Well, let's go back a little bit because I actually started chess in Jamaica, where I was born. And I learned the rules with my brother, hung out with my brother and his friends. But we played all kinds of games in Jamaica. We did back in the ancient times. We didn't have much television, right? Jamaica, poor country. So we played a lot of games, card games, board games, and chess was one of them. But it wasn't until I came to this country and started in Brooklyn Tech High School where I started playing my friends. And I played every day. I just got hooked. My man Clotaire Colas, my Vincent Leon Monroe, all those guys who used to just crush me. And it didn't take long for me to pick up and start playing better.
Were you super competitive?
I come from a very, very competitive family. I mean, we talk about playing games. We play games at home, again, card games, board games. And we are extremely competitive. As you both know, my sister's a 6-time world champion boxer. My brother's a 3-time world champion kickboxer. So I'm like the underachiever in the family. But we're competitive. It's like, it's all about it. Mm-hmm. You put something in front of us and you start talking, it's like, it's on. You don't know what you started. So yes, I was very competitive. And when I was getting beat early, fortunately for me, I saw a chess book in a library. It was completely by accident. I didn't know there were chess books even. I was 14 years old.
What chess book was it?
I don't even remember the chess book, which is sad for the story, but for the bio. But I should remember. But I remember it having Morphe games in it, and it explaining stuff about chess. And I had just seen it in the school library. And after I'd been beaten by Clotaire, I was like, I'm going to check out this chess book and I'm going to kick his ass. Like, this is on. So I went home, read the book, started learning descriptive notation. This is how old this stuff was. And went back to school and he just rocked me anyway. I'm like, what's going on? I had read that book, 9 other books. That's all he did was play chess. So it was good for me that he was good enough. And I hung out with the chess players.
That was good training,
in
right? Playing against someone who's more experienced and who's a bit better, that helps you improve.
Right. He wasn't just a potser. He was probably around 1600 strength. And then I found out about the chess club at school, and we had some good players. Stan Roosevelt in particular, who was a 2100 player, And I was like, wow, these guys can play. So I hung out there and played in the chess club and played every single day after school, like just every single day.
When did you start to beat your classmates or your friends or whoever you were playing against?
Within 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
Like it was almost automatic once I started picking it up. My brain knew this game somehow. Like this was the game I was supposed to play.
What attracted you to it? Was it the competition? Was the trash talk? What attracted you mainly?
You know, it wasn't trash talk early on with the guys at school. It was fun. The game is just fun. The competition for sure. But chess is fun.
Yeah.
Like chess was just interesting. And like I said, I was good at math. I was a good problem solver. I love logic puzzles, things like that. So it was just like, this is interesting. How am I supposed to beat them and trying to work out how I'm going to win at this game? And then the books really, really helped because he gave a logical framework for it. I remember my first favorite book was Logical Chess, Move by Move by Irving Chernev.
Yeah.
Once I started devouring that, it was over. Like, you couldn't make ridiculous moves against me without me knowing, like, that's not what you're supposed to do. Because the book just explains so well all the fundamentals, and I got it. So I think I got good, relatively speaking, for somebody who didn't know anything about chess, pretty fast because because of that book, just the material in it. In fact, the first chess tournament, Clotaire said, let's go to play in a chess tournament. And our first chess tournament I ever played in was the Heraldica Imports, Jose Cucci, before your time. He was the guy who did the New York Open, all right? Same guy who ran the New York Open before, like now it's no longer around, but he ran this chess tournament and I played it was in downtown Manhattan. I played in the unrated section, well, the under 1400 section, or maybe it was under 1500. Anyway, it was the lowest section, and I lost my first game to Paul Song, which is funny because I don't remember who else I played.
That name sounds familiar.
He's a chess master. He became a chess master, but he's too old for you to remember him, I would think. And I lost my first game, won my next 3, came back the next day, also went 3 out of 4. And my very first rating was an 1800, like 1804, 1806. And I never dropped below 1800 after that.
That must be one of the highest initial ratings of a chess player. So when I started, my first rating was 400. Like 475, something like that. I'm not
Man, you were a scrub.
I lost all my games in my first tournament.
Look at you now. Yeah. No, it was very strange that was my rating. And I don't think it was my exact strength because, you know, the provisional rating, they add, you know, K factors and 400 points and all that. But I was studying so much and playing every day like it was my job. I mean, I just did chess all the time. School dropped off. My mother was looking at me like I was crazy. Like, what are you doing? What's this chess thing? How do you make money at this? But I just wanted to play all the time. And so I kept getting better. Then finally, I think my actual strength matched the rating.
Were you actually looking at playing chess as a job as early on?
No.
Or no, it was just fun for you.
Enjoyment.
Man, growing up in Brooklyn, I went to Brooklyn when I was 12, and we moved to Brownsville. And Brownsville is the same neighborhood Mike Tyson's from. And I always joke, Brownsville was so rough that Mike had to get out of Brownsville. Yeah. You just get in trouble easily, gunshots every night. And I say every night, that's not exaggeration. Like you'd be inside and you just hear off in the distance some stuff popping off. Chess was my haven. It was what just kept me at least sane. And I was so passionate about it. And I just remember late at night studying Tal games. And nobody in my neighborhood really played chess except for my friend Leon. So it was just me and these chess books and Tal sacrificing pieces like crazy. And I'm like, this guy's a wizard for real. And it just was my lifeline. And so I always just wanted to do it purely out of passion.
Were there any other sports that you were interested in growing in Brooklyn?
Well,
like basketball, anything of that nature?
Yeah, coming from a competitive family and an athletic family, I was always into martial arts.
Martial arts.
Absolutely. So
I did Taekwondo, right?
I did karate. Seido was the name of the art.
Seido, okay.
Seido karate, and I did kung fu with my friend Leon early on. And then otherwise we played ball. You know, I wasn't really a good basketball player, cared to, because I came from Jamaica where it wasn't popular. We were more into soccer, which we call football.
Yeah, yeah. That's what
well, the rest of the world calls football. So I was into soccer and cricket, but I came to love basketball and baseball. I came the same year the Yankees won the World Championship in 1978, the World Series in 1978, and fell in love with the Yankees from that point. And then just started loving sports in general. Football, played all the time, American football that is, with my friends. So I was always pretty physical, but chess took over. Chess just dominated. Within a couple of years of coming to this country.
Chess had that obsessive element for you. Like you really spent all your time at some point. You were just obsessing over the game, trying to get better and trying to learn as much as possible. Do you think that's a facet of chess, or is it that you can get obsessed and passionate about any sort of activity, and it was just chess for you?
I think it's true you can get passionate about anything. I mean, golf players, will say the same. Tennis will be the same. But it was chess for me. And chess has that quality, as you know. I mean, you just play and all you want to do is play. But it also depends on the kind of person. I think all of us are that type, right? That's like, chess, that's it. I just want to do this. And again, it was something my mother didn't know what to do with. I didn't have a trainer until I was 2,400. I was 21 years old before I got a trainer. And it's all because I couldn't stop doing chess. I just kept doing it, studying it, reading books for me was everything. It's just like, it's all I wanted to do was read, next book, go to the library, get a chess book, buy a book. If I didn't have the money for it, my friend Willie Johnson, who was a big influence in my life, a mentor to me, he would just give me some extra money so I could get a book. My dad would get me a book. It was just all I wanted to do. So I think that helped me, that I had the mind for it already, and I was passionate, and I was willing to put in the work.
Do you think that was even more helpful working on your own rather than having a coach, because you invested yourself even more closely than if there was someone else there and it wasn't like 100% your thing?
Man, if I had a coach, I'd be on your level. What are you talking about? I would have been killer.
There's a trash talk. There we go.
Are you mad? I wish I had a coach. I think about that. Like, I was the type who really wanted to learn. And a big influence in my life was the Black Bear School of Chess. These are largely African-American men who play chess in each other's homes, in the parks also. There was a big chess scene in New York City, as you know, great park scene. And I would go out there and play the hustlers, and they trash talk naturally. And of course, the scene is the best because you're playing chess, there's music, there's trash talking, they're blowing smoke in your face. It's outdoors, there's sirens because it's New York, so cop cars are driving by all the time.
Chaotic.
It's just great. It's like, that's how we learned to play chess. So now when people are like, shh, it's like, turn up the music, let's go.
There was a Botvinnik story about that. He would have, because at the time smoking at the board was allowed, he would have his sparring partner blow smoke in his face to imitate like the distractions that
I know that story. Yeah. I know that story. Well, if he came to Brooklyn, it would be reefer. It's not gonna be just smoke. All right, he'd be getting high while he's trying to play. Let him figure that one out. So yeah, we was crazy, man. And I mean, the hustle scene in New York, you just can imagine guys that you looked at. It's like, do you have money to go home? Do you have a home? And some of them really didn't, but they were badass at chess. A couple of guys ended up in prison, played even better chess in prison, came out stronger, like that kind of thing. So it really was a wild scene to grow up in. But then the big deal for me was the Black Bear School, where I met Willie Johnson. We call him Pop. He was 18 years older than I am, still around. Greatest guy. Sees you start laughing immediately. He says hello with a smile, that kind of guy, just very warm, loving, and would give me advice on just being not just a chess player, but a man. And but the group was Willie, and then there was Ernest Colding, Chris Welcome, William Morrison, Ronald Simpson, who's no longer with us. And probably Ronnie was the most influential of all of them for my chess, because Ronnie was a tactician in the style of Tal. And these players were all 2,000 to 2,200, and if not a little stronger, but they always played blitz, and they very rarely played tournaments. So after having played in high school, then I met these guys, and I was about 16, 17 years old. I can say my growth not only was I studying chess, my growth is largely because these dogs were like, we don't know what you're studying, but bring money because we're going to whip you. Like, that's it. And we would play through the night. We'd go to Pop's house. Again, Willie Johnson. We go to Pop's house and play 9 o'clock at night to 9 in the morning. They would play the whole weekend. Like, they would lose girlfriends because of chess easily because they were playing all the damn time. It's like,
they were playing for money too?
Yes, they were playing for money. And at some point, Pop, because I was so young, Pop would be like, don't play him for money, right? Like, what are you doing? He's a teenager. What are you doing? And they'd be like, nah, we gotta beat him now before he becomes a GM. I remember Ernest Cole, they call him Steve. Steve was like, nope, I'm gonna beat him now. So when he becomes a GM and he comes back, he's gonna remember the beatings. I'm gonna beat him then. And I'm like, what? So that kind of heavy duty, intense growth by fire, right? Like, that was raw. That was real, and I have such pleasant memories. Just literally playing chess all night long. I would go home. I was that kid on a Friday night, wasn't hanging out. My mother would know I'm gone, but she knew, he's at the house playing chess with the crazies. And I would stumble back in at 9 a.m. and go to sleep. And that was every Friday night.
Did that contribute to your chess style? Like a swashbuckling sort of, or the way that you also mentioned you were studying Tal's games, and all the people you were playing with, they seem to have these like creative and crazy styles and playing all night. Did that contribute to how you play chess?
You know, when I think back on their styles, like Chris and Pop and Mark Mears, who also passed on, a lot of them were very positional. They had different styles. Ronnie had the most tactical style, and that helped me. But I think I was just that kind of crazy player who wanted to sack pieces. It's funny, when I look at my games now in tournaments, they're so boring. Like, I don't play any. I had this image of myself that I was a tactician, always wanted to sack something. And then I look at games and I'm like, what? They're so damn positional. Like, what? But I realized that I used to always be willing to sack a pawn for the initiative. Just, you can have it, whatever. And my openings were terrible because we never really knew how to study openings. Yeah. So Ronnie showed me the Botvinnik English, right? So like C4 and move 1, E4, knight C3, G3, bishop G2, in order to attack. Like, that was the point. But at least we had stability in the center, and then you'd figure out how we're going to get around and figure some attack with F5 and just pawn storm or something, right? And that's how I played until much later when I finally picked up E4 and played more open positions. But by then I was already 23, 2400.
You mentioned that a lot of the players that you grew up with never competed. They were playing at their houses, they were playing in the parks, but they didn't go to compete. When did you start competing?
They played, but they didn't play as much. Right. The most important thing for them was beating up on each other. Like,
was it because of travel costs and things of that nature? Or?
I mean, we're going back to chess in the 80s.
Yeah.
Guys had
not
jobs.
A lot of tournaments.
Not a lot of tournaments would come around. And
chess wasn't a career back then. I mean, you couldn't make money unless you were like top 10 probably, right?
No, absolutely not. Chess careers and grandmasters were like mythical creatures on Mount Olympus somewhere. And you would see one, it's like, that guy. I remember when we first saw Yasser Seirawan, and Yasser would be suited up. And, you know, he was a playboy back in the day. And he had on gator shoes and styling. It's like, yo, that's Yasser Seirawan, man. Wow. Right? And grandmasters wouldn't even talk to you. Right? Joel Benjamin and those guys, Maxim Delugi and Michael Rode, all these New York guys, they went like, come on, man, get away. And on top of it, they thought we were hustlers. Like, just to be blunt, like, we came to a chess club, they saw us, they were like, these are the hustlers. And it was racial, it was straight up, but sit down and play. Like, I'll show you a hustler. Like, let's go. So, no, career, I was not thinking about it as a young person. The only thing I was thinking about was playing chess.
Just
getting better. Yeah. And that's all I cared about. And plus, I had to beat Ronnie and William because, you know, they were trash talking me and kicking my ass. I was unacceptable. Yeah. So that was it. It's like, get better. And thankfully, they were 22, the top guys were 22, 2300 level, but they didn't play in tournaments as much. It wasn't until I actually played in tournaments, got past them, that they couldn't accept that I was the best player in the school now. And they started going in tournaments. And as soon as they did that, they all raised their rating to 2,300. Well, wow. The top ones. Became 2,200, became masters, 2,300s. Like, that was always their strength. But they just didn't play.
Do you remember your first tournament victory?
No, I only remember my first loss.
Yeah?
It was to Paul Song. Paul Song was my first loss. You remember your losses more than your wins. I don't remember my wins, but my losses stung and motivated me. And that was big for me. I was a person who could not tolerate losing. And every loss was like, okay, I got to go home and study for 5 hours. That's it. And so that's how it was.
And speaking of your family as well, what's the age difference between you and your sisters?
My sister is a year and a half younger than me, and my brother is 7, 8 years older.
Was she competing at that point? She's a boxer, right?
No, my sister was a dancer.
She was a dancer.
Right. She was followed by my dad, our dad, who was a dancer. He was a serious dancer. He danced for dance school, Martha Graham. He had his own school. And so she was following behind him. So she thought she would be a dancer, but then she broke her knee. And after she broke her knee, she couldn't dance anymore. And so she turned to my brother, who was always into martial arts. And he was by then getting into kickboxing. And she said, I don't know what to do now. And he said, all right, let's segue from dancing to kicking people in the face.
That's kind of crazy. Like, you break your leg and you can't dance, but you can
still kickbox. That's right, because you don't have to go up on your knee like you would in dancing. So she was flexible, right? And that made her, if you're a dancer, you can do everything. Like, athletically, dance is the perfect training. And so she was just picking her feet up and kicking any which way she wanted. She turned a black belt just like that, and she went into kickboxing. But then when she was competing in kickboxing, she didn't know what to do with her hands. And so she would fight women, and they would come inside her legs, and she didn't know what to do with her hands. So she had to start training for boxing. And then as she did that, she fell in love with it. And that's why she went into boxing. And so such a strange thing that she did that. She never won a kickboxing title, but she became 3-time amateur Golden Glove champion, fought in Madison Square Garden, and then a 6-time world champion boxer, and got in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the oldest boxer, male or female, in history.
Were you guys pushing each other's careers, let's say?
Not direct.
I've done this. Hey, what about you? What have you done in the past year?
Apparently, my sister, she's like the most competitive of all of us, because she takes it personally. She really hated watching us excel at anything if she couldn't be good at it. But my brother was very supportive. He was the big brother, so he treated us like his younger siblings. He's much older, significantly older. But my sister was the one who did that more. Me, I was just trying to do my thing.
That's amazing that she took her weakness in kickboxing and made it into her biggest strength. That's
a beautiful lesson for life. It's a very beautiful lesson, and she absolutely did that.
But your family doesn't play chess besides you, right?
No. My dad plays a little bit, and in fact, he started playing much later in life. I have another brother, half-brother, who plays a little bit, but none of them ever played in tournaments or anything like that. They would be 1,200. Let me not say that, because my dad would be like, what? Maybe like 1,400, 1,500 online. But no, they know how to play.
Actually, what you mentioned before reminded me of something when you said that you were like seeing grandmasters like Yasser Seirawan or Joel Benjamin. And I remember the scene from Searching for Bobby Fischer, where there's like a crowd around the park in Washington Square Park, and they're like, "Oh, it's Bobby Fischer." But then they go there, and someone says, whispers, like, because the game is heating up, and it's like, it's Kamran Shirazi, the Grandmaster. It's like the superstars. Well, and I mean, in that case, he wasn't a Grandmaster, but still the superstars of American chess, and you'd see them sometimes, like you mentioned.
Yes, New York was great for that. I don't think I would have become a strong player if I wasn't in New York. I think New York, because it had everybody in it, because you were competing against these players who happened to be there, you could be motivated by them. Guys like Roman Djindjashvili, who lived there, John Fedorowicz, like all these strong players who lived in New York City when New York was the epicenter of chess. Now it's St. Louis, but when it was New York, and you had the park scene, you had the tournament scene, the Manhattan Chess Club existed, so you could play tournaments there. New York was it, and that culture was fantastic. And that combination of the hustlers and the players, like it just made it a great thing. And we would see them. I remember, like Yasser really features highly in a couple of stories when I was coming up. And I remember one scene where I was, what do you call those guys on he was playing a game against Dragan Barlov. And I was doing the demo board. I don't know what you might call it, the demo board boys, whatever you call it. But anyway.
Board boys.
Yeah, right. But anyway, I was doing the demo board when it wasn't digital. They needed somebody to go on stage. And by then, I was already a 2,300 player. And I went up on stage and I was just making the moves as Yasser was playing against Barlov. And Yasser played this move, B5, that sacked the pawn. And when he played it, I was like, what? And I put it up there. I'm looking at it like, wow, he can do that? And I started looking at it carefully, and then I thought I found a refutation. Like, I don't know. I think you could take the pawn and beat him up. And the point of his sacrifice, the sacrifice was if you took back with the pawn, with the knight, then he can sack back and win an exchange in the corner. So game goes on. He wins. He's coming out. He's like confident. But I had already worked out this variation that I thought refuted what he was doing. So I go tell my friends, and when Yasser walks out, he's like this, and Grandmaster. He's like, yes. and we say, well, when he sacks the pawn, when you sack the pawn with B5, can you take back with the knight? And Yasser's like, he's looking at us, and it's 4 brothers from Brooklyn, right? So he's like, well, guys, if you take with the knight, I'll just sack on D5 and your rook in the corner is hanging. And we go, oh, we're sacking the rook. And he was like, whoa, wait. These guys are not playing. So we show him the line which involves sacking the rook, like putting a bishop on A5, a white bishop on A5. My knight on B5 is going to take on C7, like stuff that just doesn't happen on the chessboard. And we show him this line, and Yasser finishes looking at the line, and then the next words were, guys, I'm impressed. They're like, yeah, you better not mess around with the brothers from Brooklyn. So it was cool to have somebody like him who would actually sit down and analyze with us. But that was the big deal back then. To just anything you do to be around grandmasters.
Was that the moment when you thought, hey, I can make chess a career?
No, the way I made chess a career came completely was actually forced on me. Like a lot of stuff that happens in my life, it looks like. People just want to give me money for some reason, right? It's like, okay, I'll take it. But I was by then a 2,400, playing in the Manhattan Chess Club, playing regularly blitz on a Friday night, just hanging out. And Doug Bellizzi, who's a chess master, approached me and said, would you be interested in teaching chess? And I was in college at the time. He said, would you be interested in teaching chess? And I had no clue about teaching chess at all, period. And he said, there's a program that the American Chess Foundation, which is now the Chess in the Schools program, there's this chess program that we're running in the inner city. And we think, you'd be good at it. Would you do it? And I still was like, I don't know. And he said, well, it pays $50 an hour.
That's not bad.
What? Yeah, I'll do that. And I mean, I was a college kid. This was 1988. First ever chess job. I said, I'm with it. And so I started coaching chess. And I would go to the Bronx and Harlem and teach basically in the hood. But I grew up in the hood. So it was cool teaching kids that grew up the way I grew up. And they follow right behind me. And it was just fun. So I was a coach for many, many years. And that's how my career really started in chess.
And in 1992, you won the Game 10 championship, right? Or you played against Max Dlugy in the finals. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it was a monster tournament. They had GM after GM, Gulko, who I beat, and just all these players. But I played Blitz with the Black Bear School in Brooklyn.
Exactly.
So I made a run, and I wasn't even an IM, and I tied for first, ahead of these GMs with Max Dlugy, who now is like the infamous Max Dlugy. And he beat me 2-0 in the finals. So I didn't really win it. We kind of tied for first. It was a national title at the time. But yeah, it was one of my best results.
And he was a grandmaster at that
Yes,
point, right?
absolutely.
And you were an international master?
I was not an international master yet. I became an international master in 1993.
And when did you start gaining the GM norms? When was your first GM norm?
1993, Enhanced International tournament I won ahead of Shabalov, Ginjashvili, and Fedorowicz.
And your rating was about
and
what
I was
at that point?
2,500 at the time.
It was already 2,500.
USC, I was 2,400 FIDE.
FIDE, yeah.
But growing fast. I was winning. I got the IM title that same year. And fun fact, along the path to growth, as I was getting better, just rewind for a second, I beat the first chess master I ever played. I beat the first IM I ever played. So the first master was Danny Shapiro. I beat the first IM I ever played, Jonathan Schroer. And I drew the first GM I ever played, Andy Soltis. So I was like, these guys aren't that good. Of course, later I lose a lot of games. But the growth was really fast at one point. And so I really felt like I could do it and get to the title. And so 93 was when I got my norms. I got my IM title that year. And then I got my first GM title. I'm a first GM norm. But I got it about a month after I found out that my girlfriend, now ex-wife, was pregnant. And I had told her, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to get my norms. I'm going to become a GM. And then we're going to get married. And then we're going to have kids. And it turned out that the kid was first. That the marriage, right? The kid was on the way. The marriage came second. And the title took another 6 years. So things don't always work out like you planned.
So you had everything, just not in the right order.
Just not in the wrong move order. Like you should have turned the move order around.
Were there any of the top American players that you also worked with besides just playing with them?
No, my first coach was Vitaly Zaltzman, who also happened to be Maxim Delugi's first coach, and Ukrainian. And I got that because the American Chess Foundation, there was a professor at my school, City College, where I graduated. He saw me playing chess, and he's like, there's this talented young man who I think deserves lessons. And so they got a package together for me to get a trainer. He spoke to the American Chess Foundation. They got a package for me because I couldn't afford the lessons, to go get chess lessons. And so I would go to Brooklyn. I'd go in down Ocean Parkway, take the bus to the Russian neighborhood. Yeah. And I'd be walking, and you'd like see these babushkas looking up. Who's the kid? And I'm like, where am I, man? And I go to Zaltzman's apartment, and he just started breaking down chess moves. And he would trash my game. I would do stuff, and he's like, come on. Every Russian schoolboy knows this. I was like, what? I don't know it. And he'd just tear my game apart. And he was IM level. And because of him, I grew very fast. And he was largely responsible for me getting to the IM title when I did.
It was that classical training, right?
Yeah.
Classical I had Russian training.
I was doing too much gangster stuff. Yeah. Just throwing stuff at people. And I had no idea of pawn formations, nothing. And he started really schooling
me. Did you guys study classical games?
Or? Classical games. Mainly he went over my games. Mainly that was the thing. We'd go over games, and he'd just be disgusted. And then he'd say, do this. And I'd be like, oh, that is a good move. Damn. And I grew. One thing I was able to do was sponge up whatever somebody told me, and I could morph and copy your style very fast. And I really picked up his positional style that added to my more dynamic style.
But not everybody works well with this type of coaches, right? That just trash talk you and trash your game. You were oblivious to that. You didn't care, yeah?
He couldn't say anything that they didn't say in the Black Bear School. Come on, man. In Brooklyn, they talk about your mama. They want to date your sister. Like, what is he going to say? Like, all you do is like, okay, whatever. Let's keep it going. And what would happen for me, it was even better because I would be in the middle of a game and I would hear Zaltzman's voice. I'd be like, nah, he's going to be criticizing this.
Were you trash talking him at all? Or?
Oh, never. No,
there was some respect there, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that would be out of line. He was in his 50s. I was 23 years old. I wouldn't do that with him. And he wasn't trash talking me. He was just telling me I was making bad moves.
Right.
Like, he wasn't trying to hurt my feelings. But that was good. And I remember I would bring back games, and he would just rip them apart. And I played this one game in St. Martin. There was a chess tournament in St. Martin. Same tournament I beat Shabalov, one of my best games, the game I'm most proud of. And I played this game in a hedgehog position. It wasn't against a very strong player, but I handled it very well. And after the game, after we went back, I went back to New York to look at it with Zaltzman. And the very first time he finished the game and he said, "You played this like a world-class player." And I was like, Salzman said, "What?" What? And that really was the kind of compliment you get that was gold. You remember forever, because all the other stuff was, "This is terrible. What are you doing?" So that was a big moment for me.
It almost feels like the Queen's Gambit and her relationship with the janitor and that type of situation.
Yeah,
Did
except
you feel the same way?
Yeah, except I wasn't drinking and doing drugs. But it was a big deal to have a trainer.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't have a trainer until I was
21?
already 21 years old.
Wow.
And 2400 USCF. I was about 2300 FIDE. And he helped me to go to the next level.
When did your love for endgames and studies develop?
That's like in the last year.
Oh, really?
I never used to like endgame.
Oh.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Studies, I've loved those for a couple of decades. Absolutely. Endgames, I don't know if I love endgames as much as I love studies, but definitely much more recent. Back then, it was all Tal. If it wasn't a combination, don't show it. And that was, in fact, I have a funny Tal story that features Yasser Seirawan. So I have to tell this one.
Please do.
So this was the New York Open. It was 1990 New York Open. Gadakomski's 15 years old. 1990, I think that's right, 89 or 90. Gadakomski's 15 years old, and he's about to defect from the Soviet Union, which was like about to be Russia, like right around that time, right? So he's on stage playing against Mikhail Tal, my hero. Tal is in New York playing chess. It's a couple of years before Tal actually dies.
Yep.
And they're on stage, and I'm rooting hard for Tal. Komsky has white. And I'm looking at the position, they get to this position, and I see that Komsky can sack a knight, then sack a queen. Tal has to refuse the queen, in which case Komsky can sack the queen again, and now Tal's getting killed. And I'm staring at this, I'm like, what? And it starts with knight b6 on the queen side before playing queen g3 on the king side, and it ends up being mate. Queen g3, and then after this combo, queen f2. Computers show it right now is like trivial. But I'm staring at the board, I'm like, wait, what? He can play knight. Because the whole idea is there's a rook h8, rook h7 mate, and the queen is on e5, and it can take, on this diagonal, it can take the rooks, which is what Komsky actually did in the game, was to play rook h8 and trade off the queens, and he had a much better position. He went on to win. But the better win was play knight b6 to deflect the knight on d7, and then they play queen g3 to deflect the queen, and then the mate's unstoppable. You're just going to fall apart. So I see the idea, and I'm like, what the heck? And again, I'm not an IM, lowly, good, decent player. And I look over, and Yasser Seirawan, lo and behold, is reading a magazine in the audience. He's finished his game, and he's like chilling and reading. So I go over to him. Excuse me, Grandmaster. Can't Komsky play knight b6? And Yasser's like, but he knows me, right? Because I told him something earlier. And he goes, I take it. And I go, queen g3. And now he's like, oh.
He starts
This clown
calculating.
has an idea, right? So he tries to get out of it with this tempo move to take on b3 with check and then play queen d4. And then I go queen f2. And now I'm like, this is a genius idea. This is brilliant. This is fantastic. What does Yasser do? He goes, oh yeah, it looks good. And goes back to reading his magazine. What the heck? No acknowledgement, no love. I just sacked a knight and a queen twice.
Yeah.
So he's as cool as ever, just reading his magazine. He doesn't even like, go now, right? Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I go outside, and Jay Bowden is there. Now, Jay Bowden, IM, Iron Man, he's played chess all the time. A New Yorker, used to crush me. That's one of the guys that's trial by fire that I had to play.
Tough guy. Yeah.
And I see Jay, and I say, Jay, I see something. And he's like, what? I see how Komsky can beat Tal. Show me. I put it down, and Larry Christensen, Big Lar, GM, who was one of Yasser's competitors back in the day, happened to walk by, and he knows Jay, and he's like, what's going on? And he goes, Maurice has a move that Komsky can play. And this is pre-computers, right? So it's not like we can check it with the engine to make sure it's good. So I showed them knight b6, and they're like, what? And then I showed them the sack with the queen, and they're like, yeah, this is this is going to cook him. Right at that moment, Yasser walks out of the room, of the playing hall, and he's got his magazine under his arm. He walks straight up to us, and he goes, yeah, I can't figure out what to do about that move. So the whole time he was actually thinking about it, but he didn't want to give me any love. So Kamsky doesn't play the move. We go, the game continues. Kamsky wins like 20 moves later instead of winning on the spot. It would have been a beautiful miniature. Kamsky comes out with Tal, and Kamsky's on air. He's 15 years old. He's just beaten Tal. They go to do the postmortem, and his father, Rustam, who was like a heavy-handed dad, tells him, we got to go. And Kamsky, what? Like, in Russian, but it's like, we going, or else I'm going to beat your ass. Like, let's go. And Kamsky's like this, like, wow. And then he just gets up and he has to leave Tal sitting there. Now, there's a giant crowd around. Like, everybody wants to see this postmortem, including me, who I want to tell them knight b6. It's Tal. It's like I'm going to get to tell Tal that somebody could have played knight b6 on him. It's the opposite of what I would have liked, but still. Yeah. Kamsky leaves, and we're all disappointed. It's like, this was going to be the movies, man, to watch this postmortem. We're about to walk away, and in walks Grandmaster Anatoly Lane, who used to be Tal's compatriot back in the 50s and 60s, and had now been living in New Jersey but playing chess in New York. He walks in just at the right moment, the perfect time. The crowd's about to leave, in walks Lane. And Lane looks at Tal, and he's like, oh, like, what's up? However they say it, right? And then Tal says, he shrugs his shoulders, like, what, I lost, and like, where's Gada? And Gada is not around. So Lane goes, want to show me the game? Okay. And they got to sit back down, and the crowd's like, yes! So we all come back. Okay, we're going to sit and watch. So we're all now watching. Meantime, my heart's beating out my chest because I'm waiting for one moment. I got one moment. So they go, and they're analyzing. I'm like, hurry up, get to the position. Hurry up, get to the position. Finally, they get to the position. And I know Lane, and he knows me from the Manhattan Chess Club. So I go, Grandmaster Lane, knight b6. Looks, he notices, okay, it's Maurice. He's a decent player. He's not going to say garbage. He goes, yeah. And when he says take, and I go, queen g3. And he goes, and he looks at Tal, and he puts it on the board. And they start analyzing. And they start breaking down variations I didn't even look at, other lines trying to get out of the situation. They go all the way down. They realize it's winning. Lane looks at me, gives the nod. Tal has no clue who said knight b6. They keep analyzing. They finish. They leave. I don't get to say hello to Tal. I don't get an autograph. I don't get a handshake. I get nothing. I'm like, what? And that was my sad end to the Tal story. Later, Kamsky, in The Informant, annotates the game. And what does he say about in the annotation? He puts knight b6, double exclam, no explanation.
Just that.
Just the move. Knight b6. And he wasn't there when I said it, so he must have discovered it later.
He discovered it, yeah.
And I saw it, I was like, that's my move. That's my move. Chess sometimes.
Did you meet Tal afterwards?
No,
or
never.
That was the last time.
Never, because then he passed away. That was his tournament, then he passed away.
He was very sick at that point in his life.
Yes, he was starting to get sick.
Wow. Kamsky was an interesting story. He was like top 3 in the world. He leaves chess completely, comes back 10 years later, or
about 6 years later,
something like that, and becomes a top player again.
Yep.
You'd think after leaving for so many years, and he came back, he wasn't good anymore. He was so rusty.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I mean, he nearly played a world championship match. He plays Topalov. This was like one of the most amazing redemption stories I've.
Absolutely. It took him about 6 months, and I would be at the Marshall Chess Club. He would play all the time, all the time, and he just kept doing it until the field came back, and then he was just a straight monster.
Did you play in the Marshall Chess Club as well when you were in New York?
I was club champion in '93. I had some of my great successes there. Like I said, my first GM Norm was there. The Marshall and the Manhattan Chess Clubs. Manhattan Chess Club's not around anymore, but that
Marshall's
was
still around.
Yeah, that was heaven for us. paradise. You knew the strong players were there, and you get to play against these GMs. And for me, the most important thing was winning my first 2 rounds in those weekend Swisses, because it meant I would play a GM. Like whoever I was sitting in the first 2, I was like, y'all in trouble, because I have to play a GM this tournament, or it's going to be a wasted weekend. And so I had to beat the first 2 players, and then I'd play a GM, and I'd lose or draw in the case of Andy Soltis. And that's how my training ground was.
Kamsky was the first top player I played in the Marshall.
Yeah?
In 2004. I was 11 or 12. I think probably 11 years old. And I didn't know who he was. I just heard a legend is returning. I thought it was going to be Fischer. But it was Gatto, who's also, of course, a legend.
Definite legend.
Certain kind of legend, as he would say. And we played, and in the Tuesday night Masters, those were going on at the time. I don't know if they're still around, but
yeah, I remember those. Yeah, Gatto was quite a character, and that's what I'm saying. You get people like Gatakomsky playing at the Marshall. Of course, you're going to get strong, because you know you're going to play players like that, and they're going to beat you, and then you're just going to get stronger from it. I remember Jay Bonin, as I mentioned. Jay beat me out of the first several games we played. He beat me 10-0. Well, with draws sprinkling in between. I couldn't beat the guy. And you knew you had to go through Jay Bonin. There was the rite of passage for anybody growing up in New York. You had to go through Jay Bonin or else. And then I remember I finally beat him. Once I got strong enough to beat him, then I started beating him. But that's just how it was. And I like that.
He has the record for most games played in a year, I think.
In a year.
It's like 1,000 games.
Has he kept the record?
Games.
But
I think so.
It was ridiculous.
Tournament games, I think he must have that record.
Yeah, Jay played on average. He was averaging like 3 games a day.
Yeah.
On average.
It's crazy.
Right? Because he was playing rapid tournaments, and he'd play maybe one tournament in the morning and then goes to play a classical game somewhere else. Like he would just do, it wasn't exactly like that. But whatever was available, Jay was there. So you knew you had to go through him or else.
Yeah.
So I owe people like Jay, Asa Hoffman. Remember Asa?
Also, yeah.
People like that. They're people who stay out of the top limelight in chess. Names that for us are priceless and legendary, and you remember, like, if it wasn't for that guy, they never become super famous or even famous, but in those circles, they're legends, and people like that are responsible for us becoming strong.
I want to get back to one of your previous points. You mentioned that you started looking at chess as a career when you got a coaching job. Did you see, and now you're an author, you're a commentator, you're a coach, you're a player. Did you see this umbrella of chess, but chess as all these potential careers encompassed in one as a chess professional?
Absolutely not.
Or were you just thinking of, I'm going to play chess, and that's all I'm going to do?
Like all of us, I think, anybody who becomes a GM, we all aspire to one day be the world champion. Right? I think it's just like a natural, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's completely unrealistic. Who cares? I want to become the world champion. So if you put your sights on becoming the world champion, the Grandmaster title is like, I'm going to get that, right? And that's what you were doing. So I would work that hard, thinking, I had no clue what it meant, but I'd be working that hard because I wanted to become a better player. In the meantime, I was coaching and making a living. So that was
had to
important.
make a living.
I had to live, right? I had to eat. And I was able to do it doing chess, so that was great. It wasn't necessarily great because coaching, as you may know, can somehow pull you away from your own play.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I didn't know that at the time, but I had to eat. So that's what I did. Then my students, those same kids in Harlem, I took them to the national championships in Dearborn, Michigan in 1991, and we won. We tied for first. We were in the front page of the New York Times, and all of a sudden, a lot of people knew about us and knew about the Raging Rooks from Harlem. Suddenly, people knew about me as their coach. We were invited down to the Wall Street Chess Club by one Bob Rice, who would end up being the president of the Professional Chess Association, the PCA, which Garry Kasparov founded after he broke away from FIDE and took the world championship. So I had a relationship with him from that one moment. And when they were looking for commentators, he said, that Maurice guy, he has a way about him. I think he would be good. I was an IM at the time, and so they could have picked any GM, but they had Grandmaster King, Danny King.
Danny King, yeah.
And they said, let's try him, because he's going to have a different way about him. So my first commentary gig, official, was for the Intel World Chess Grand Prix, sponsored by Intel. 4 tournaments, Russia, in Moscow, Paris, London, and New York. I get flown to Moscow, and the tournament takes place in the Kremlin. Like, what? I am there for Eurosport.
And that's what year? 1995?
94.
94.
I'm flown, so I'm there for Eurosport, and they're doing commentary. So we're supposed to be there, film some stuff, and then film in a studio. But the commentary, live commentary, is in Russian. They had headsets, and the Russians are listening. And Bob we got a bunch of American people, and they're like, Maurice, listen, we can't understand the commentary. We can't follow any of the games. Do you think that you could go and do commentary, and we'll turn it to a channel where we can listen to you? Because they had different channels they could listen in through the headsets. I give it a shot. So I'm up in one of those translation booths, looking down on the Kremlin stage, doing commentary by myself and doing it like it's basketball. Like I'm doing it like Marv Albert, screaming at the top of my lungs, "What a move! Unbelievable shot by Gary!" Right? And my sound is bleeding through the headsets. Clara Kasparova, who's Gary's mother, apparently turns to my channel, even though she doesn't understand English that well, but she said she was feeling the excitement of the game from this American commentator. And that's how my career started.
You're famous for that way of commentating, of like commentating it the way it's a sports event rather than the way chess is usually commentated, which is like a slow and deliberate affair. Is that natural?
Yes.
For you, or does it come naturally through chess despite the fact that it's a slow board game?
I grew up trash talking in the parks. So what I really want to say, I don't get to say because you're not allowed to say it on television, right? But that's how we grew up talking about chess in the park. And you make a move, and some few expletives get strung immediately. So for me, commentating on chess, it was just a natural flow. Like that's how we talk. And the excitement of sports, I'm a big sports junkie. It was only natural. Like that's how you would talk about it. And I feel that it's not just a board game, as you know, it's personal. You're feeling it. When you make that mistake and somebody sacks a piece on you, it's like, you got to be joking. I can't believe this mother, like that's the feeling of it. And so I just speak my feelings. And it's a different kind of commentary. When I first started it, a lot of people didn't like it. They thought, who is this guy? Or it's chess, it's not sports. He thinks I get a lot of criticism for it. Like, I don't care, but I do. Like, what's his style of doing it? But it's how I grew up, and it's how I think about chess.
Now, those were classical games, yeah? And you were saying that you were super energetic.
No, those were rapid games.
Oh, those were rapid games.
It was rapid chess.
That makes sense, because in a classical game, by yourself, to talk like that for like 2 hours.
No, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. It was rapid chess. It was so the moves were coming pretty quickly.
Was it only one game at a time, or?
Yes.
One game at a time.
It was one game at a time. I remember Kramnik beating Kasparov, the famous King's Indian, where Kramnik marches his king all the way to the other side of the board to A7. And I got to commentate that, and it was like heaven. Like you can't believe this is Kasparov, and the beautiful attack he put, and then Kasparov with the counterplay, and then Kramnik marches his king with queen on the board, rook on the board, marches it to the other side and hides it on A7, and then Gary has to resign. It's like, what?
Is that the most exciting game you've commentated on, or is there anything else that comes to mind as like the most exciting game?
No, I mean, some of the games, I think that was pretty exciting as a live game. I think the U.S. Championships, a lot of U.S. Championships were very exciting, particularly in the Women's Championship. Games like when Sabina Foiser won her title. That was such an epic story, one of the most heartwarming stories ever, and the way she won that title. Naji winning her title, one of her titles, her first one in particular. I think those come to mind. I think the U.S. Women's Championship is like my favorite event to commentate.
I remember that game between Irina and I think Anna Zatansky, when Irina at some point like
that was the Blitz playoff.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah, that wasn't something I commentated on. That was early on. I think that was maybe in Oklahoma City or something.
Yeah,
but
those emotions run high during those final Blitz games.
It's great. You guys just bore us to tears, and the women just keep it exciting all the way through. I mean, it's just so much fun to watch the U.S. Women's Championship.
Speak about your first gig with Yasser. I mean, he's such a big character in your story, right? When was the first time that you guys did commentary together?
We did commentary in 1995 World Championship. It was the World Trade Center. First, Anand versus Kasparov. First game 1, 9/11. This is 1995. Can you imagine? This is one of those weird things.
6 years, yeah.
And
before.
and then the big thing we did was the next year, 1996, Kasparov versus Deep Blue. That was huge. Man versus machine. And we get to talk about that, making history. Then Gary won that one in Philly, and then Yasser and I ran it back the next year in 1997, and that's when we became, like good buddies. Here was Yasser Seirawan, silk suits, gator shoes, and here I am doing commentary with this guy, right? The same guy who was like, yeah, whatever moves, and now I was doing commentary with him, and that Yasser is still the Yasser that I know and love today. Just
and
cherish.
you guys have completely contrasting styles in commentary. He's very calm, tells stories.
Yes.
You're very energetic and
yes, Maurice. That's right. And our styles are contrasting because I want to sack a piece and he wants to win the end game. Like give me the pawn, right? Pawn grubber, and he's most excited looking at pawn variations when you grab the pawn. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's ridiculous. You're going to take a pawn now? He's like, yes.
You mentioned sacking a pawn for the initiative, and
right.
he would love to be on the other side.
Oh,
of that,
absolutely.
Trying to soak up.
He's
that
taking
initiative.
all the pawns. Like, give it up. Then he refuted it. You're like, damn, how is he refuting all my pawn stacks? Yeah, Yasser has been a huge part of my life for the last almost 30 years. And in terms of chess, one of my dearest friends in chess.
Did you guys ever get into a quarrel during commentary?
Oh, during commentary?
Yeah.
I think the most peeved
This is what I want to play. This is what I want to play. And now I'm going to beat your ass type of thing.
No. But Yasser doesn't get upset, it looks like.
That's true.
Have you ever seen Yasser upset at anything?
Not really, no.
I mean, the guy is...
It's hard to imagine.
He's just like... He's the guy that calms everybody down. I think the most upset I've ever seen Yasser is there was a moment when me and Jennifer Shahadi were excited about some variation, and we were all over this, and we kept talking, and Yasser had something to say. And he's not the kind of person who just interrupts you, and he's not the voice that's going to do that. And we kept talking, and you could see Yasser's like, these potsers. Excuse me. And we kept talking, and he's just like,
waiting for his turn.
Do you know I'm a 4-time U.S. champion? Like, I was one of the best in the world. Calm down. Let me show you what the real thing is. And when I looked over and glanced at him, I think I better be quiet now. Yasser's face is not normal. Usually he's angelic, beatific almost, but not at that moment. You could tell he's like, let the adults speak now.
Did you ever get in a fight in general over arguments about a chess position with like someone you worked with or someone you were playing against?
No, but I've seen them, and the trash talking gets very heated. So stuff back in the day, you'd hear the language get a certain way, people, and money's flying back and forth with the hustlers. So it was,
especially when money gets involved, you expect to see that every once in a while.
It's not pretty. But people basically kept it okay. But you could get into huge arguments in those kind of settings.
1999, that's when you got your last GM norm, I think. You
Yes.
made the title. What changed in your life when you became a Grandmaster?
I became a Grandmaster. For a lot of people, it's trivial. It's a path along the way. There were no black players with the Grandmaster title in the U.S., and so it was a big deal. It was a big deal. I was feted by the media. I had my 15 minutes of fame. Luckily, I had a little bit more to come, but at that point, a lot of people were interested in me making history, and I got invited to do a lot of things, and my rate went up. That was nice, right? Now you're a GM.
Because you were still coaching at that point,
Yes,
right?
I was. Actually, I'd taken time off, and that's a huge part of my life. In 1997, Tiger Woods wins the Masters. And that upset me because it's like he was getting all this love as being a black man in like an alt sport for African Americans. And I said, I got to get this title. At the time, I had a child. By then, I was married, had a child, and had to pay bills. I was 31 years old, like dreaming about becoming a grandmaster at that time. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I was still harboring the dream. I was making money off chess. I had a CD-ROM. I was
CD-ROM.
Yeah, I know, right? CD-ROM. What's that?
The kids don't know what
Grandpa,
that is.
what's that? CD-ROM. But anyway, I had Maurice Ashley teaches chess. It had that like sporty feel, and I was making money coaching. But fortunately, I was working with a new nonprofit, and a gentleman named Dan Rose, philanthropist, was in charge of it. It was Harlem, teaching kids in Harlem. And I told the executive director, her name is Courtney Welsh, that I really just want to become a grandmaster. And she said, ask Dan. And I said, just like that? She said, yeah, you're coaching his kids. He's a nice guy. I asked him, and he said, I like that. You know what? I'm going to give you the money so you can just study chess, pay your bills, and when you're done, I just need you to come back and coach the kids for 3 years. Like, that would be your obligation. I don't want you just leaving.
Pro bono or still?
No. Still come back and work.
Just come back and work.
Just come back and work, yeah. And I had the opportunity for the next 2 years. It took me 19 months. And I had already won GM norm, that same GM norm from 93. So now it's 97. And from the September of 1997, I stopped coaching and I just started studying chess. And that's all I did every day. I'd take my daughter to school, I'd come home, and I'd study chess all day. Go pick her up from after school, and the next day, same deal. I had the life of a chess player.
And then you have to go play also.
And then I would go to these tournaments. I went to tournaments in Germany and Budapest and just went and played Bermuda and played as much as I could at chasing norm tournaments. And it took me, I got my second norm in Bad Wiessee, Germany. Great tournament. Almost beat Rustam Kazimjanov.
Oh, you played Rustam.
Yeah, I played Rustam. I was 6-0 in the tournament. I was killing people. I was first place by myself. I had Rustam, I had Halifman, Gavrikov. Yeah.
They both became world champions also.
Exactly. And I played them both, and I drew Rustam, and I should have won. I missed the damn win. And then I got killed by Halifman in the second to last round. And I had to make a draw in the last round against Gavrikov, and he tortured me in a rook and pawn ending. But I finally made the draw and got my second norm. And then I came close in other events. Drew Romanishin, and started playing. Started playing some really old school cats, and then finally got the title in New York in the Manhattan Chess Club. Like I had to go all around the world to get the title back home.
And you got it against actually a Romanian grandmaster, Negulescu.
He was an IM.
He was an IM at that point.
Yes, Adrian Negulescu. He did not know in that game, it was round 8 of the tournament, he did not know that game was going to give me the title.
Oh, really?
No, he had no idea. He just thought we were playing chess. But I knew that if I got that game, it would be my third norm. And it was a huge game, huge day for me. That day, I reflected when I was in New York, so I was home in Brooklyn, and I was ironing to get ready to go to the game. And I was nervous. It was just like shaking about it. Because I tried for so long, and here I could win this game and get the title. Even though I had 2 games to go, make 2 draws was like, this could be the game.
Yeah.
I had white, going into the round. And I'm trying to iron, and my grandmother's voice, my grandmother raised us as children. My mother came to this country when we were very, very young. I was a 2-year-old. And my grandmother raised us for the next 10 years. And something she said had irked me because she kept this line, jack of all trades, master of none. Jack of all trades, master of none. And it was something that stuck with me because I felt like I had not become a great player. And my grandmother was like cursing me from the grave. Right? You're never going to get good. You're never going to get good. And that kept being something that blocked me as a player the words of this lady. And while I was ironing, the words came back again. And only then, as an adult with a child, if you will, and I don't know what it was in the moment, I suddenly realized that my grandmother wasn't cursing me, that she was saying it out of love. Like, if you want to be good at something, don't do everything else. Focus on what you're going to do. And that interpretation or reinterpretation in that moment made me realize that I was mad at my grandmother, that it was something I shouldn't have been harboring all that time. And I dropped the iron and I started crying. And it was like a release. And then I picked it back up, finished ironing, got dressed, went to the game. And in the middle of the game, at some point, I was just like, it's going to be okay. No matter what happens here, I'm going to make the title. And I just played smooth. I won a pawn at one point. He sacked the pawn in the opening. He had compensation. I gave it back. And I just had this initiative torturing him. And then he blundered in this moment. And I got to play a move, bishop e7, which all it was just attacking his queen and his rook. And before I played it, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm going to win this game and get my GM title off a stupid move like bishop e7. Like, literally, I'm sitting there going, it's like a Potter's move. You wouldn't even show that in a tactic book like it was special. You just play bishop e7, the queen's on f6, the rook's on d8, you get the rook. Really? It's just this funny moment, and okay. So I played it. He, in the meantime, was trying to hold his breath because he was in time pressure when he played rook d8, and he's like sitting there like, uh-oh, I'm gonna lose now. I play the move. He resigns. I had the biggest smile on my face. He says, "Why are you so happy?" I said, "I just got the GM title." He's like, "What?" So, okay, buddy boy. Fact in history. Who did Maurice Ashley beat to get the title? So forever that. It was a huge day. I was so happy. My buddy Josh Waitskin was there. So we were totally thrilled at that point. I remember going home. I'm not somebody who likes snow, but I remember taking the subway back home, and it was snowing. And I was walking through the snow, and it was the only time I've ever thought of snow. Like, it was a winter wonderland. Like, oh my God, it's snowing. It's beautiful. What a day. It was March 14th, 1999. And that was it. I lost the next game.
You probably partied hard that night.
Man, yeah. I was calling everybody up. Everybody was happy. It was not, I did not care about the next day. And it was another real round to play. I lost to the eventual winner of the tournament. But
is that your happiest chess memory, you think?
I think so. Yeah, I would say yes.
I mean, with everything involved, that was super deep. I have goosebumps, hearing the story about your grandma, and yeah, that's a big moment for everybody. I remember, actually, I was playing in Romania when I made my final GM norm, and in the last round, the dad of the player that I was playing against, I'm not going to mention any names, he offered me to make a draw. And I was like, no, hell no, we're not going to make a draw before the game. I felt like that was cheating, right, basically. So I went on and I kicked his ass and made the norm. But yeah, I guess the last norm, everybody has a very special story about.
Absolutely.
I don't.
You don't? Yeah, because you're a big boy. You're like, number 2 in the world and all that.
My last game was so unremarkable. It was, I needed to draw in the last game. I'm playing black against this pretty strong Grandmaster, Kosic. And I get in a position which I'm completely unfamiliar with. He plays a King's Indian attack. And I'm there very nervous. I'm like, I don't know what to play. I'm worried he's going to start attacking me. Like, we already have the structure where he's played e5. And I'm like, okay, now I got to push my queenside pawns and he'll attack and we'll have a mess. And he just offers a draw. At that moment, like move 12, I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And that was it.
Yeah. No, that doesn't sound very emotional or touching, goosebumps.
No.
You got to fix that story somehow.
I'll get a new one.
Yeah, that was really special for me. Like I said, my mother was a single mom, so she, at the time, had left when we were that young. When I was that young, I was 2, my brother was 10, my sister was a 7-month-old, and she had gone to the United States, come here to make a better life for us because she wasn't allowed to bring us with her. So she left us. My grandmother said, go, just do it. I'll take care of them. My grandmother was 64 years old. So imagine a 64-year-old taking care of 3 kids after she already had 7 kids of her own that she had raised. And she raised us until she was 74 years old. And I was now 12. We went to go finally live with my mother consistently. And I always remember the sacrifice of those 2 women. My father came back into our lives. He was always really there, but he had to sort of clean himself up and then be a present father for some years. And that was huge as well. So the sacrifice those people made, they didn't know what was going to happen. Anything could have happened. And so when the storyline becomes that we made the best of their sacrifices, and now I can look at my mother who was like, how are you going to make money off chess? How are you going to do that? And I was like, he made money off chess. My son, the Grandmaster, look at this. She takes the clippings out of the paper and all that, So to know that we delivered on their dream is really special.
That's huge. That's huge. Now, I want to get closer to present times. In 2014, you started the Millionaire Chess Open. That was one of my favorite tournaments. I have to tell you.
You got some money out of that thing.
In the last year, when you guys slashed the prize fund by 30% or something like that, I didn't get the full 40K. I got 12K.
But that started earlier, right? In 2005.
That was that was not that. That was a different idea.
That was the same.
Yeah,
the start of the idea.
And that was like what?
The HB Global Chess Challenge.
$500,000,
yeah,
right?
it was $500,000.
Yeah.
I always had the idea to do $1 million tournament.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get a sponsor to do it in 2005. We got one to do it for $500,000, and then finally I got a chance to do $1 million.
And the watch, right?
Yes, the watch.
I remember that. I was very jealous when Isoria won and huge prize and a nice watch, and I was a young kid. I was like, this is the dream. Win a tournament like that.
I think he sold the watch, is what I heard is the story.
He did, yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted chess to be big time, and I felt like for myself, because by then I had basically retired from chess. I retired from chess
as a player.
Yeah. Essentially, in 2002 when my son was born, and it was just I was then 36, and it was too hard to be a chess player, chess professional, and I wasn't going to be world champion. That had become apparent, and my then wife, she wanted to segue into a new career, so I became a full-time dad. Right, I was at home with the kids, taking them to school. She was a principal, so she worked a lot of hours. So it was not the lucrative sport that it was going to be for me, but I always had the vision for chess players to be like that. So I had this idea, like, we should have big prizes. Watching basketball players that get $1 million contracts, and chess players are fighting it out in the World Open for scraps.
That must have been a pretty big moment for you when you made that dream come true in 2014.
Absolutely. In 2005 first, it was the first moment, but it wasn't quite that. But in 2014, when it was $1 million tournament, yes, it was a very big dream. It was a dream and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because it was so much work to be an organizer. And when you're an organizer, it's like being a Twitch streamer. You have to be that thing. You try to do both, and no, it's not going to work. But I was an organizer and a coach, making money off being a chess coach at the time, and trying to do those jobs was just thankless. And I wasn't getting paid for it. It was a deal that I had with the sponsor, Amy Lee, that we would be half in on the business. So if we were successful, we'd make money. If we were not, we'd make no money. So I did all that work and didn't make a dime off it.
But that tournament completely changed history of chess here in the United States and probably in the world, because Wesley So won that. And he actually said, I got the 100K, and that's when I made the choice to become a chess professional.
And he hasn't given me any of that money. I'm just saying. Not even a tip. I'm saying, Wesley, seriously. No. Yeah, I think that was a very big deal. It was certainly epic that he won and then Naka won the next year.
Yeah.
But you're talking about changing history, yeah. That money he got was able to do that for him, and other players did well also. So I think that's special. Good thing.
Even for me, I won like 12K, and it still feels very impactful.
Well, did you like the tournament?
I loved it.
It was I loved it. It was different.
I enjoyed it. It was very different from anything I've played. Because when I played, it was in Vegas. I think the next year it went to Atlantic City, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I had never been to Vegas before. So I took advantage of Vegas. And my chess didn't. I was out till 4 in the morning, and there was 2 games a day. I would wake up like 7 and play at 8.
What the heck?
Yeah, on like 2 hours of sleep, and then finish a game, and then play another one, and then continue the routine. And so I didn't make the final 4. That was the system, right? The final 4 fight for the big prizes.
Yep.
But we still had to play the final rounds of like the placements for 5th through whatever.
There's a lot of money at stake.
I was in a room. I played Wesley. The game didn't end up in a database because we weren't on DGT boards. I played Wesley in the final round. We draw a like really complicated game, and it never ended up in a database. And this was to decide like who would get 5th place or whatever. And Kamsky was next to me, and it was kind of funny. All this like star-studded field in this room, while obviously all the action is on the final 4 and who's going to win, and eventually I think Hikaru won, right? Mm-hmm. And we're playing these high-level games. We're like,
you're nobody. If you're not winning, we don't care. Like, that is my philosophy in a nutshell. Like, the winner takes the spoils. Mm-hmm. The whole thing about tying for first, I remember people being upset at the idea that you would have a tie break for first place, right? Like, no, it should be allowed. The GM should be able to make draws in the last round. So what if it's a 9-way tie for first and take their prizes? That should be the way it is. No draws before move 30? That's not fair. I remember getting to a huge issue with Hikaru because he drew in like 11 moves against Luke McShane.
I remember this.
And this turned into a huge deal, and people were pissed off at me. And like, they should be able to repeat moves. They're grandmasters. Hikaru was heated. Like, you can't force me to play inferior moves. I'm like, but you're playing crappy. This is not right. It took my lawyer to say, Maurice, I don't think I could defend you on this one. For me to be like,
you got to implement the rule beforehand.
Yeah, I said, okay, fine.
Although with repetition, because it was the knight of 6, knight G, bishop E3.
Bishop E3, knight G4.
There you can't, there's no way around
There's nothing to do around it. There's nothing to do about it.
To do that.
But I was trying. Yeah. I was like, no, this is not how chess should go. You shouldn't be able to take draws. You got to play. Minimum is move 30, and we need to have a winner at the end.
I think this is a remnant of when chess professionals couldn't make much money. So you can't say someone who's not making much money, like you have to fight till the last 6-hour games all the time. But now we're doing well, we're comfortable, there's a lot of money in chess that I think it's very normal that chess players should fight till the last piece.
It's a good rationale. I think that it could easily have been a rule before, regardless of whether or not you made money. Somebody could have always said you can't draw in chess. It's not allowed. They do it in, is it shogi?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't. No, you're thinking Chinese chess. You
Chinese,
can't repeat.
Where you can't repeat.
You can't repeat.
Yeah.
At some point, someone loses if you repeat too many times.
So you can't. So exactly. So if you can't repeat, that's just part of the rule. That could have easily been a rule in chess from the 1900s, and it wouldn't have mattered, right? So we would have learned to adjust. So I was basically following my philosophy that it should be a winner, and it should be real games. And I wrote an article, in fact, about no draws in chess, and people were mad at me for that. Like, no, we should be allowed to make draws. And I was insisting on it even in the amateur sections, and they were really upset about that. But now, like when you look at the Magnus, the tour, it's exactly the same formula as what the Millionaire chess formula is, which is you play to a certain point, you qualify for playoffs, and then you do the playoffs, and then somebody's going to win at the end, whatever it takes. So it kind of a little idea before its time.
With these knockout systems, it's perfect because no matter how many draws you make, at some points there has to be a winner.
That's
so
how it should be.
Might go to Armageddon, but eventually you're going to have that really nail-biting finish.
But that's how Millionaire chess was.
Yeah.
And it was just not something the chess world had seen. Unfortunately for us, we couldn't sustain it from a financial business model. And we had to stop after 3 years, which was actually the best thing for me. Well, it would have been nice if it was financially great, but it wasn't working out. So it got me a chance to breathe and restart my career, particularly in commentary and change things around. But I feel pretty good that we did something like that.
I mean, you guys were having limos, you guys were having massage therapists. I felt like a chess professional finally for the first time during the 2014 Millionaire Chess. That was a fun one. Are you guys bringing it back? Come on,
Maurice. If you start paying me some big checks, I might. But just doing it, come on. Organizing is hard.
Yeah.
Organizing a big open, and let's be real, organizing a giant open, all those people, and trying to do anti-cheating measures now.
Oh yeah.
It was hard then.
That would bring even more attention to the tournament.
Oh my goodness! I mean, it was rough then. We did have the metal detectors.
Yeah.
We were wanding people again back then. It's kind of funny now that I'm being reminded of it. How many of the things have become pretty standard now that back then weren't? Mm-hmm. But we had to do that because people were saying people might cheat.
Yeah, because you also have let's say chess professionals have a lot to lose, right? If they're caught cheating, but you had the other sections with huge prize funds and players who aren't professionals, so they might just take the money and run, and
that's it. They got it one time, and people were also sandbagging.
That was a big one.
That was a big issue, and we tried to hunt that down.
Don't rating floors fix that? Because in the USCF you have rating floors, right?
Yeah, but there were people who didn't have those issues. Like they were above the rating, and so they just slipped below where they needed to be. Mm-hmm. You know, they were supposed to be like 1490 or 1500, and they just casually lose 95 rating points, and suddenly they were at 1380, and now they were favorites to win that section. Mm-hmm. And I think the vision was bigger than the execution that followed, and it was a massive headache, and our staff wasn't enough. Looking back, I would do it very differently, and one thing I would add is like 10 workers, additional workers, and even more security and more rules, more stringent rules around it. So it really was an idea ahead of its time, and I think we did when I look at it, we did a great job on the face of it and the look of it, making sure the players felt like stars.
Oh yeah.
But for the concrete details, I would give us, in some places a C, and in some places an F. So it's something I'm really proud of, but we didn't execute at the highest level for everything that we should have for that kind of idea.
I mean, I was having those tense draws and then getting massage. We need that tournament back. If anybody watching this video with deep pockets wants to get Millionaire Chess back, we should.
Christian, it doesn't take much for massage for them to bring some masseuses to the U.S.
US Championship.
The man made 12 grand and got massages. You're not going to convince him that this isn't a great thing.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, you could do it now. We can do it right. Rex could just have it. Wouldn't you like it right now at the US Championship? Great. You finish, you go do the interview, and then you go get a back massage?
It's Vegas. It's Vegas.
Vegas had a different.
It depends who's giving the massage. If it's Yasser, I don't
know. No massage. And his voice is... Hey, Fabi.
I don't want a massage from Yasser. I do not want a massage from Yasser. So what's the plan nowadays? Let's get to present times. You've been taking a year off of commentary. What are you doing in the meantime? Big projects. Tell us about that.
So my career really changed dramatically after the Queen's Gambit because a lot of people were interested in chess. Outside of chess were interested in chess, and particularly corporations. And they wanted to get from someone to talk about chess and its application to business and to life. I don't know much about business, but I know something about chess. And I'm the kind of person who likes to make metaphors easily. You see it in my commentary. And so I talk about it in a way that a general audience understands well. So I got approached by speakers bureaus who were saying, we're finding that people want somebody to talk about chess and these big corporations, and they pay kind of nice. Mm-hmm. So I ended up giving talks to Google, companies like Google, Amazon, Pinterest, Century 21, Deloitte, IBM. And I gotta tell you, they don't pay badly. Mm-hmm. So that was intense by itself. The career as a chess commentator, you're traveling around the world and doing all that. So combining that with everything else I was doing just became very intense. So I decided in the June of 2021 that I wanted to take 2022 off, pursue the corporate speeches much more so. And on top of that, I'd always been just casually creating chess studies and had these topics of interest to me, like chess geometry, that were not mainstream topics, but I thought were very important that chess players and chess authors hadn't written about. And so I've collected thousands of examples in databases just sitting there on my computer and saying, one day I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to write some books. One day, it never came. So finally I said, all right, I'm taking 2022 off. Nobody call me. I'm not doing commentary for anybody. I'm just going to do these initiatives. And that's what stopped me from doing commentary now. But been able to continue the corporate speeches. Finally came out with a course for Chessable, Secrets of Chess Geometry. wrote a children's book, not chess, but a motivational children's book, a little bit about my life growing up in Brooklyn. Tal features in the story as well. That will be coming out next year. Currently writing a book and about to sign another book deal talking about man versus machine. So it looks like I'm in full content creation mode. Your job in my place right now it might be safe because I'm not sure I'm gonna come back and do any chess commentary next year. I really don't know what I'm gonna do next year. I made a promise to myself that 2023 is when I'll start thinking about 2023. And until 2022 is over, I'm not gonna do anything but what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about having some time off and being able to think about chess and do a lot of reading and study and create stuff.
Have you submitted any of your studies to like prize competitions?
No, I haven't. Basically, my studies are now living in my courses, or my one course so far, The Secrets of Chess Geometry. And I try to torture you with studies.
I enjoy it when you send me some of your studies, and sometimes they evolve over the course of like when we discuss it, and then they change and get some new details, which is it's nice. It's nice to like have a small impact on how a study might turn out.
Yeah, usually it pisses me off if you solve something too fast, or you get the idea quickly, even though you're a badass player. But like, no, I gotta get this guy to pause. How do I make it harder? And I mean, of course, I work with an engine to refine the puzzle because I have a core idea that I start with, and then it'll be some craziness, and then I start like putting like, is this a perfect puzzle? I want the perfect puzzle, but I also need to make it where Fabi or MVL or anybody I send this puzzle to is gonna be like, wait a minute, is this right? So I feel great when you're like, no, is this the right move? And those hesitation and that puzzle that I did, I think you know the puzzle where you have
the H file, where the H file is
exactly.
Okay.
That puzzle is now in my Secrets of Chess Geometry course. Okay. And that puzzle I love so much. It's probably my best puzzle. I call my best puzzle. And one thing was having MVL, who was like, Maurice. I was like, I'm going to show you this puzzle. Maurice, you don't know. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, oh. And then he's sitting there like, what? And he took 3 tries. He kept coming back to the puzzle because we were on the rooftop in Madrid for Immortal Game, who we were both signed with. And he's looking at it for 10 minutes. He can't figure it out. They called him away. He comes back 10 minutes more. He still can't figure it out. And I'm like, you're going to have to think about this one. And then finally he figures out the key idea and tells me the key move. But it took him some time. So that's the kind of stuff. I don't play chess anymore, but that lights me up. Like, yeah.
How do you approach creating it? Is it like reverse engineering? Do you start from a final position sometimes, or do you just like
sometimes
start just creating a position and see where it goes?
Everything depends primarily on the pattern. So it may be that the initial position is interesting, the initial pattern. I like, for example, something I talk about in my course, I like backward moves, right? Retreating moves. So I'll think of, you saw one of this I posted on Twitter, where a queen goes from A8 to H1 is the winning move, where it can be captured by a rook on H8, a black rook on H8. So a white queen goes from A,
I remember this one,
right? From H8 to A8, from A8 to H1, and a rook can take from H8 take, or a queen on A1, a black queen, can take, and either one ends in mate.
Yeah.
So that idea starts in my head like, oh, wait a minute. I wonder if I could do that. Like, I like dares. I like to dare myself, like a challenge. I wonder if I could do a puzzle where this happens. And sometimes I'm just laying in my bed and suddenly one of these weird geometric ideas comes in my head. It's like, I wonder if that's possible. And then I start with that idea. And sometimes it's a final position. Mostly it's an idea, though. I like cool ideas. I don't like just this wins.
Do you get inspiration from games that you've seen, like real games, real
sometimes,
positions, and then you just create something around that theme?
Sometimes, but mostly, yeah, sometimes because you see cool themes in puzzles. I remember Tatev played a game in last year's US Championship that was interesting, and I made a puzzle out of it.
You should see the game that was played yesterday. Maybe you saw it, where Begum plays knight to F2.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see it.
It's a beautiful theme. It's like the knight can be captured. It's on a square which looks safe, and then it moves to a square where it can be captured by anything, but there's 2 pins. So if it's captured by one thing, another piece, and it kind of like trades knights, so she ends up in exchange.
Oh, I got to look at that one.
It's a
Sounds
beautiful
like a
little
puzzle in the
tactic.
making.
Yeah.
I'll actually show it to you right now.
Yeah, I love interesting themes. I love looking at chess like you're looking under the hood of a car. So I'll give you one. This is one. It's random, but it's kind of cool. So what is the only discovered check? Tell me the pieces. The only double check where one of the pieces moves backwards.
Where it's a double check, but the piece moves backwards.
Yeah,
It has to be the knight.
has to be the knight. And what is the other piece?
A bishop.
Bishop or
a queen.
Or a queen. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can have a double check with a piece moving backwards, right?
Yeah.
So it's something like those kind of weird, like, really? Okay. And then I'll try to make something of it.
This was the moment. Knight F2.
Wow, that's a cute move.
That's nice.
That is very nice.
Yeah.
It is nice. Yeah, so things like that occur to me. Also, the latest thing that occurred to me, you know how you can, so again with double check, which is not something I was thinking about necessarily, but I see the connection now. You know how you can have a double check where like a rook's on E1, bishop's on E2, and the king's on E8, right? And you play bishop B5, and a lot of double check mates that end up with this position. But have you ever thought of a double check on the queen?
Like a double attack on the queen?
Same deal. Like the same position, and you play bishop B5, and the queen is hit on E8, and the rook, let's say the rook is defended, and the bishop is defended. So in this position, if there's a pawn on F7, so you play, right, so the queen's on E8, you play bishop B5. If the pawn's on F7, the queen can't leave the back rank. So if a king's on the back rank with it, then rook E8 wins the queen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So something came to me with this idea. I was like, I've never even thought of this. Like, you double attack the queen like this, like a double check, and the queen's kind of mated because wherever it goes, the rook's going to land on the square. So then I started creating something around that, right? And that's the kind of stuff that comes to me. It's like, that's kind of interesting. And then I look up games in the database to see if this kind of positions ever happened. And then you find games where it has happened. But it's like 3 games in history of millions of games. But it's still cool. So that kind of nuggets that I look for that entertain my brain.
Maurice, I want to finish this off on some drama.
Of course.
We're going to start off with your first initial drama against Magnus, and I want to take your reaction. So
you mean the
this
moment?
Was the moment.
The smooth moment.
The smooth moment,
Maurice
yes.
in Paris with an interview.
Will I remember it? So are you playing it for the fans?
Well, we're with
Yes,
the king
yes,
of
yes.
Rapids. Magnus Carlsen has taken at least that title. Not that it means anything as far as this.
At this point, he already looks a bit pissed.
I can tell you why. Do you want me to tell you why?
Please do.
So the backdrop to this is you're the one doing commentary with Jovanka and
I might have been in the studio.
yeah,
Yes, I
you were
think I was in
doing
the
you were
studio.
doing commentary with
I think I was
Jovanka
in the
and,
studio,
and
yeah.
so this is what happened. People think that what happened was this moment right here. Like he got upset at this moment. But
Yeah.
in an interview afterwards, he told everybody what happened. And it was this. I was also with Romain Edouard.
Yeah.
Doing commentary in Paris. He had just finished winning the rapid portion and was going to the blitz. You all in the studio are now saying who you thought would now win the tournament. Who are you picking to win the tournament? And someone says Magnus, and someone says Magnus, and I think you said Grishchuk.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure you said Grishchuk. And now you threw it to Maurice in Paris. Magnus is off camera being mic'd, about to come to the interview. And I say, because Grishchuk had just won 4 or 5 in a row, I said, I don't know. It looks like Grishchuk is doing really well. I would pick Grishchuk to win the tournament. Magnus hears this off camera and now enters the stage. And this is why he comes in already pissed.
He's already pissed.
Peter Doggers interviewed him for chess.com afterwards, and he explained that's what really upset him, that he had just won the damn Rapids. He's Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, and here's this guy talking about Grishchuk's going to win. So he comes in with a chip on his shoulder, and the rest is history.
Let's see.
Tournament is concerned, but at least he's shown that he is indeed the best player in the world and starting off the Grand Chess Tour quite well. Magnus, you seem to have some hiccups earlier today. You didn't have really smooth performances. And this game wasn't that smooth either. It looked a little bit unclear. What's your feeling overall as the game was transpiring?
Okay, I mean, what do you want me to do? So, I mean, I take the piece, and then, I mean, of course, he hasn't done anything particularly wrong. Of course, it's not going to be lost. I mean, what do you want from me?
I think this was the key phrase. What do you want from me, Maurice?
What do you want
from me, Maurice?
So at the moment now, I'm like, what's he pissed at?
Yeah.
And he's upset about a technicality that I'm not calling the performance smooth. That day he had one tough game against Karyakin that he had like thrown a pencil. This game that he had won, I forget who it was that he had beaten, but whoever had sacked a piece against him. And he had to take care of business. So it wasn't like it was one of those classic, easy, smooth victories. So I didn't think I was qualifying it as anything special. But now homie is upset. Like, yo. And at this moment when he's upset, I'm thinking to myself, the cameras are on. Mm-hmm. This is hellified good television. Like, I just can't help it. Like, the showman in me is thinking, okay, I'm just going to stay cool and try to diffuse the situation. Just be, I ain't going to go Brooklyn on him right now. Let's just let it happen. But I know the cameras are watching and that it's a moment. And so I just let it happen.
And how is your relationship right now with Magnus? Did you guys squash the beef?
Within days.
Within days, yeah.
Like it was maybe 2 days later when we happened to see each other. And he came over to me and was like, man.
Sorry about that.
Well, I was just kind of overreacted. And I was like, yeah, I didn't mean anything. But by then, the big story had gone larger than either of us could have possibly controlled. But Magnus and I have been cool since 2 days after that incident.
But people still bring it up.
Absolutely.
When you're like, we're talking about Hans and Magnus, for example, and they're like, oh, Maurice and Magnus, they had that fight.
Right.
They don't like each other.
I mean, that's cool. A controversy sells in chess. So if it's going to be like we don't like each other, I mean, he and I played Bug House together here in St. Louis, and I was just talking with him. He invited me to the tournament, or his group did, down to Miami. We were hanging out in Miami with the Bryan brothers, who were tennis players, during his tournament, and we were just kicking it. He was wondering why I wasn't doing commentary now. And so Magnus and I have nothing between us and haven't had since then. But, the internet has long memories, and I think it's fine. I think a little controversy is cool in chess. A little controversy. When it gets a little too crazy, that's a lot. And
let's talk about that.
A lot of controversy.
The current controversy, I don't like. But by the way, there's a clip on Twitter right now that I posted.
Yeah.
And you had made this mistake, or you hadn't realized that castles hadn't happened in the game when you were doing commentary. It was a pretty funny clip. So I put the clip up and I call you this guy. Now, people don't know that this guy is like a good friend of mine. So people like, whoa, you're being so condescending to your fellow commentators. Yeah. And like, what? It's Christian. Like, what are you talking about? You know how me and Christian talk to each other?
But that's the thing, they don't.
They don't. They don't know our relationship. So when they see it, they think I'm just trashing on this random commentator.
We're gonna sell some pay-per-views for the next
and then so now we're gonna do some chess boxing. I hate him. I don't like him. Yo, we're gonna fight. But so it's fine. I think it's a little bit more fun.
Lawrence and Greg Shahade do their little like feud or whatever it's called, their grudge match, and they're trash talking each other online, and you're like, oh, these guys hate each other.
Yep. People love that. People love to. In this case, it's kind of weak because we're just like, friends and co-commentators. But in the case of Hans and Magnus,
that's a big one.
There's no faking that one. Like, that's just no faking that one. That's rough. I think that's rough for chess. I don't like what happened. I think Magnus made a mistake in the way he flowed with it, because I don't think he thought it was going to happen the way it went down. He was right in feeling upset and maybe suspecting. Clearly, he could see certain things, certain trends, and later it came out that Hans had done a lot of things. But the cheating allegation, I'm sure he's not happy that chess has to deal with this from the media standpoint. I haven't talked to him, but I would suspect that he's feeling like, this is a game that I am the greatest ambassador for the game. He's our greatest sportsman. He is a great sportsman as well, and he doesn't lose I mean, he's not happy when he loses. None of us is happy when we lose, but he loses and gives respect. Like, even if he played like crap, like I played like crap, but they beat me. You know, he's got Pragnananda beat him. Other people, even less than that, have beaten him in the past. He knows you can lose at chess. So losing, when people say sour grapes, no, it's Magnus. He's been a great sportsman his entire career.
He's used to losing.
And he's used to, not that used to losing like we're used to losing.
But he's not going to overreact.
But he's not going to overreact to losing a game. Play him a match and see what happens. He'll take all your money. But losing is not that for him. So I don't see any sour grapes from Magnus. He's very principled. This is principled. But I think because he's so principled, he had to be a little bit careful in trying to not let the genie come out the bottle the way it did, because the way it has now is ridiculous.
What do you think the end game is to this?
I don't guess at the end game. I don't guess at the end game because I don't know what's going to happen. I didn't know that Elon Musk was going to tweet about sex toys. Like, come on. There's no control over what happened. And I think it would have been a way to somewhat control the narrative. Instead, it got completely out of hand. And I think that now FIDE's investigating. Are they going to judge? Might they judge Magnus in the wrong for making accusatory remarks without proof? Would he be banned? Would they dare? Is that something that could happen?
Doesn't it?
It seems. I mean, but should he be? Those kind of things should be asked about. It's Magnus. Like, this is our world champion. This is, at least for now.
I think Magnus achieved what he wanted to, which is what he said recently. He wanted to start a conversation about cheating.
And he could have. But he could have done it a bit differently in a way where, because you have to have proof. You can start a conversation, but you could also destroy a person. And if your intention is to destroy a person, like I'm going to actually destroy you, then he could have done. He would have done that right now. Hans could act anyway. There's anything that could happen to this person. You're talking about a 19-year-old kid. Okay, he's not a little kid, but he's a 19-year-old, and there could have been sad reactions for this kid. You don't know how he might react to having his entire reputation and career crushed. So at that moment, especially as a parent, I have a 20-year-old. I know a little bit about how that age is feeling. You just be mindful. Even if you think, dude, you're cheating, we got to do something about it. Handle it a certain way.
I mean, 19 is young, but we view 19-year-old as an adult who should be able to make their own decisions in terms of ethical decisions, in terms of I shouldn't do this. If you hurt someone, you're still just as liable as a 19-year-old as a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, whatever.
Yes, I understand that from the technical standpoint. Nevertheless, we're the adults in the room, right? We're the grown-ups. And what that means is handle it a certain way so that even if he's going to face retribution, right? It's like the way chess.com has tried to manage these things. Mm-hmm. They have a responsibility, a very big one, and they try to handle things a certain way, right? They have a certain policy around it. They could very easily say, we're going to trash every single GM who has ever done this ever, and all of it gets exposed. And some people want that. Get the drama out,
well,
right?
They've gotten criticism both ways.
Both ways, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
But you still have to think, what is my most responsible act right at this moment? Because it's going to have real ramifications. And our game is now the cheating game with the sex toys. Like, that's what people want to talk to me about.
I think most people understand this as a joke.
No.
Some people don't.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's embedded in a lot of people's minds. And I'm doing interviews where I'm talking to reputable reporters who want to talk about this topic, right? Like, so how is he cheating, Maurice? In fact, this is not PG, right? Like,
no.
Okay.
No.
You can do whatever you want. No. So I did an interview with with a reporter in Australian television. They showed the whole interview. Then the guy comes on to interview me, and then they showed the whole issue. Like set it up. Then he comes on. So to talk more about this cheating scandal, we're going to bring in Grandmaster Maurice Ashley. So Maurice, what do you think about it? So I'm talking about it. And then he goes, Maurice, tell me about vibrating anal beads. I have never been asked this question in my life. Like, it's just never happened. And I would hope it never happens again. But he goes, so tell me. So when he says that, I go, I don't want to. Don't make me. Like, so I keep talking about it, and I said, you know, the cheating could have happened anyway, if it did, and it could have happened maybe with something in a false tooth, maybe, but that's not sexy enough. So people want to talk about something else, and the guy with a smirk on his face goes, "Yeah, I guess it says a lot about us that we go straight for the anus." I have no comeback for that. I'm like, okay, just like keep going, please. Next question.
Specifically, Elon Musk goes straight for the anus.
Well, I mean, come on. This is, and of course, this is what everybody wants to talk about. And the truly reputable reporters, I don't know what they do in Australia. I guess it's the kind of stuff that happens. But other reporters, they're dancing around it, but they know it's like, yeah, that's what most people are talking about and most people are interested in. So where else but chess is that a thing?
But for people who are familiar with chess, I mean, we're speaking about people who don't know anything about chess. People who are familiar with chess know that this isn't really a thing. This is a joke that got famous because Elon Musk tweeted it.
But I don't care.
It was funny to him, and it was funny to people in general.
I don't care about the people who are familiar with chess. That's us. We're fans. We love the game. What we want is to bring it to, not that I don't care, but you know what I'm saying. Those people are part of the fan base. We already have that. They're going to follow us no matter what. I'm talking about the giant audience out there that would allow for real money to come into the game if they are fans of the game. You should be a multimillionaire easily, like big time. I mean, maybe you are, but not from the prize money you're getting on the regular. Right? You should be playing for $1 million every time you play in a tournament.
I agree completely.
I mean, you should
Let's
be.
make it happen.
Come on. You're a giant star, one of our greatest players, and that's what should be happening on the regular. And the only way that would happen is if we had a huge fandom. We'd have to bring many more people into the sport.
But we do, don't we? I mean, the last few years have made chess quite a mainstream sport compared to how it used to be.
Are you making millions of dollars playing in tournaments? We need bigger numbers. We don't have the numbers.
Well, it's growth.
It has grown. It has grown. Queen's Gambit, internet has helped. But pandemic helped. We no longer have the pandemic. We no longer have Queen's Gambit. We need the fan base to be there so that these kind of prizes are the norm. Those fans, how they're coming to chess, we'd like it to be for the moves. Yes, for some drama, maybe me and Christian arguing over Twitter, but that's not going to do it. What's doing it? The vibrating sex toy. All right? Like, come on. That's not what we want to be known for. Now, maybe in the long run, it's going to be like, yeah, actually worked out. We got a much bigger fan base. Fabi's doing ads for certain kind of manufacturer. Well, don't do it, Fabi. Don't do it. I'm going to say it as your agent. But, you know, it's not cool that, for me, that's where it's gone for our game.
I mean, it doesn't seem nice for someone who loves the game. But if it grows the game, and we don't even remember why it happened in the end.
We're going to remember why it happened.
In this case, we might remember why it happened.
By the way, I just need you to say right now, Maurice, you were right. I remember you were there. Thank you. I said, when it first happened, I said, this is going to last. This is going to be a lasting story. And you famously said at that dinner that we had at Yellow Belly, you famously said, oh, come on. This is going to blow over in a month.
Yeah, I was wrong. You were right.
Thank you. That's all. No more explanation. That's all I want.
I thought that at some point people would forget because in the past we've had some cheating stuff. It never was this big, but still, it gets big for a moment, and then people are like, okay, next tournament, and people forget. Like, there's no evidence. We don't know. But then this just kept escalating.
Yep.
Not just because of the Elon Musk tweet, but also because Chess.com came out with reports. Magnus clarified his position. There was this like one move resignation or whatever that they played.
And I didn't have any of that data when I said this is going to get big, bro.
And Hans himself is such a controversial figure, regardless of the cheating stuff.
Yep.
Like just whenever he says stuff, he has like a huge fan base. He has a huge hater base, I'm sure. He's very charismatic, so he perpetuates the drama in some sense. You know, he gets on camera and then he says, this was a statement. And everyone jumps on that.
The game speaks for itself.
His father said that.
The chess speaks for itself. What?
His father gave an interview and he's like, my son's game speaks for itself.
I did not see that.
This happened. How is it? I guess it makes sense.
That's great. That's great. That's good stuff.
Niemann Senior, Daily Mail. Maurice, I think that's a good note to leave it on. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. What's your prediction for the U.S. champs? Who's going to win it? In the open section, we already know what your prediction is, right? I mean,
I got my money on one guy.
All right.
I got my money on one guy. So definitely, you better pull this off. Take care of business. No, there's no try. There's do or not do. Take care of business. In the what I love about the women's section, as I said, you never know. You never know. As you say, time will tell. Okay, You never know. I love that, the drama. The people who are watching this now will already know who won, right? But it's great. That's the kind of drama that chess should have. And so this is fun. I'm glad that I came to St. Louis and I got a chance to hang out with my good friends.
Awesome, Maurice. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure, bro. All right.